this is the video that I forgot I still needed to do, and by some contrast with videos earlier in the season, instead of being out 5 o'clock in the morning, this is actually 6:15, middle of September, and you can hear the noise in the background, which just shows that this is no longer a good time for filming because everybody's up and about going to work and what have you, but I felt I had to do this one. It's going to be a lovely morning. Unfortunately for filming, it means it's a bit dark and grey because the mist has come down, but this is Wallace Haven as it is now. Quite a contrast from where we've seen it in previous videos at Iron Bridge and up on the A271. This, where I'm standing, is called Middle Bridge, and it's an interesting design because it's, you know, I can get down the side here, but it's almost castellated in design, which I hadn't noticed before now. And you see, it has these kind of turrets in the wall, and you can walk into them and stand there. I don't know whether that's meant for fishing or not. It is a very popular fishing spot, that's for sure. But standing on, it's on what is known as the Marsh Road between Pevensey and Barnhorn, and until the 1920s this was a pokey little old road that twisted and turned across the marshes, not much good for anything. And I've been looking back over some records, and there was quite a to-do about who was going to pay for it, where it was going to be built, and eventually it got completed about 1930. I'm just going to go across the road here where it's quiet, and which meant that in 1933 or thereabouts the first bus service could be introduced between Eastbourne and Hastings, shared as it was for many years afterwards until the National Bus Company came about by Southend and Mason and District. And a few little insects you can see on the water there, fish coming up to bite. I want to zoom in though on that bridge down there, because that, as far as I understand it, is the remaining bridge, and it's not very wide at all. That's the original road across the marsh, or part of it, that now runs parallel and is just in use as a farm track, as is so many of the other bits and pieces of it. But this Wallace Haven now, as it goes down across this part of the marsh, the sea, it sort of breaks up, and I guess it's been used for irrigation and drainage and what have you. And if the mist clears, we'll see a little bit of that later on. But in the meantime, oh, there is just one other thing I should mention. Just the other side of that hedge you're looking at, you can't see it in the mist, is what I call Eastbourne Aerodrome. The Eastbourne Model Flying Club have their little airfield there, quite out of harm's way, and they fly there quite regularly. But we're on the eastern part of the Pevensey Bay, as it was, and therefore the eastern part of the marsh, and I'm going to move on now in search of North Eye. Now I'm just at the bottom of the hill that leads up to Barnhorn, and there's another one of these must have been a design specifically for this road, because here's another almost castellated bridge. The amount of traffic on this road, especially heading to Eastbourne, is unbelievable. Sorry, there's a bit of a breeze going up. A lot of people come here fishing too. This is another one of those drainage ditches, but I'm looking across towards what was North Eye Prison, which actually is nowhere near the real North Eye. We're actually looking up onto what I call the Barnhorn Ridge, like a little a little promontory that when I get across the other side of the road in a minute, you'll see where it once would have swept down into the sea at the far eastern end of Pevensey Bay, and then some of the bay would have swept around here. So you can see we're still really not out of it yet. There's such a vast area at its time. North Eye Prison, all of this area was covered in the Second World War with the old radar things from RAF Watling, RAF Pevensey, RAF North Eye, and North Eye after the war became a prison. It was closed in about 1996. Then it was taken over by, I never did find out exactly who. They were, it was an Arab country, and it was taken over as a military college. And very, very weird. Now I think it's dilapidated. I'm not going to go down there to find out. I'm going to get across the road though before things get too busy. Unfortunately, you don't get a very clear view from here. I had hoped it might be a bit better, but you can see again just how flat the land is over there. North Eye, you would find no trace of now. Let's come to this gate so that I can have a better look away from the traffic. Over behind those trees that you see in the foreground, and just to the left is where the Barnhorn Ridge drops quite sharply down onto into what would have been the sea then, and the old part of the Eastbourne to Hastings Road actually is just behind those trees and wends its way round in another loop back onto the new main road. North Eye was an island about quarter of a mile, I suppose, the other side of those trees that you see in front of you. You wouldn't even have thought it was an island if you went over there and had a look now. We don't get public access over there as such because it's all farming land. There are a very few minor earthworks, and that is the only clue you've got that there ever even was a settlement out there, and that settlement was North Eye, but the village was abandoned in about 1400. There are tales that it was succumbed to the plague or what have you, but there aren't any real records to prove that. And it had a chapel built in about 1262 from what I've read, and the remarkable thing was one of the walls of that chapel was still extant, still there in the 1850s, 1860s, but has since gone. So basically, North Eye, as the island, began just about over there where that line of trees is, was a very small island. It contained a village, a settlement, but from the Middle Ages, just left a rack and ruin. And this is really about as far east of Pevensey Bay as I intend to come this morning. I'm going to go down into Cooten now and come back through the marsh back to Pevensey. Well, as this is supposed to be exercise for me and a walk, I'd better do a bit of walking. I'm at Cooten Beach, and although I can't get to it from here, believe it or not, behind those houses opposite is a golf course. A lovely situation for a golf course, and that is, we are at literally the very eastern end now of where Pevensey Bay met moorland, the area that's now known as Bexhill, before sweeping inland again towards Crowhurst. But I'm here at Couden Beach, and as the channel is called Station Master's Choice, I thought perhaps we'd better have a little railway related item. Couden Beach Station is one of those typical Southern Railway concoctions. I remember it as a child as Couden Beach Halt, but it gained better status, I think, as more people started to commute from here to London. Cyclist up already. This is one of those typical Southern railway stations of the 20s and 30s that used a lot of concrete in the construction. Really. Even got a train for you. And here we have examples. That train is heading for London. So if I was going to work, it might be a train I'm getting. Yes, this fence is the last remnant perhaps of the Southern Railway concrete. Unfortunately, in recent years it's been discovered to be somewhat defective, and many of the stations have had to be replaced by other materials, unfortunately, although they do try and save it where they can. But this curious station building here, and you get to the platforms. I'm not going to go in, but we do still have a station shop, but it looks as though it's moved from that corner into where the booking office probably was at one time. And I'll just pop in here so you can see the ramp work leading up. Here we have some of the original walling, and on this side you have brickwork now, but there was concrete at one time lining those walkways. Anyway, onwards and upwards, as they say. Let's go down to Couden Beach itself. That's Herbrand Walk, which I shall be taking very shortly. Now, here you can see very clearly what I was talking about. The original brickwork so far up the walkway, beyond that I seem to remember was the concrete, and it was crumbling away and looking very sorry for itself, and I think they've done quite a pleasing job. Not actually replacing it with a concrete substitute or anything like that. They've done it in Sussex white weatherboarding, and in a funny sort of way I think it actually looks quite attractive, but I think we can still see that they've reinforced some of the concrete foundations there, but you can see some of the original bits underneath holding the structure up. An interesting design survivor. But Couden Beach here has another unusual claim to fame, because it was at the western end of the Hastings and Bexhill trolleybus network. Now that bridge we just walked under would have been far too low for trolleybuses to go under, and so get round here, we'll show you. This was the trolleybus turning circle. And they would come along Couden Avenue from there, turn round in this circle, and there was a trolleybus stand just at the bottom of the hill. But this, folks, what a place for a trolleybus route to terminate. Couden Beach, with, I don't know if you can see it in the mist there, but Beachy Head over there in the distance. So there you are. Now I really am at the other end of Pevensey Bay, and we'll make our way back across the marsh. Hopefully there'll be one or two places of interest that I can stop on the way back across, and then we really will have done the full Monty to where did the Normans come and go from, and the Romans for that matter. But as I say, that's the terminus there of the trolleybus route, long trolleybus route out from Hastings. I spoke earlier about sluices. We're now down where the marsh meets the sea these days, and I'm actually standing on ground that might well be below sea level. I can't wander too far away. They have a fishing station up there where there are some fishing boats, but I just very quickly get up the top of these steps. That's as far as I go in case anybody wants access to that land, but you can see how this shingle bank has actually been built up to keep the land behind it from flooding. And you can see as I'm standing at the top of these steps, and I lift the camera up, how low-lying that land was. Just ahead of you up there you can see the Barnhorn Ridge, and if I just pan round to the left behind those trees over there, that is the area where you would have found North Eye. And now I'm going to have to go back down the steps. There's a train coming shortly, and to be fair to the water board, I need to be out the way of their gates. Well, I'm here in the car park at the very popular Star Inn, looking at a very interesting old tree here. I wonder what kind of story that could tell. But here we are on the marshes once again, and looking back across towards the Barnhorn Ridge. None of these two mounds that you can see was North Eye, but again it's over there, tantalising in the middle where we can't get to it. But I mentioned how Wallace Haven, when it got towards the sea here, over the years as the other land silted up and was drained, the main waterway has been divided into lots of different drainage ditches and what have you, and they're all controlled by sluices. This is why this road that we're on at the moment is called Sluice Lane, and they supposedly control the levels of water in the marshes so they don't either dry out or flood too much. This bridge here, believe it or not, I once got a 36-foot single-decker bus across it coming in the opposite direction, and everybody said you can't do it, and I don't know how I did it, but I managed it with about an inch to spare at both the front and the back. This road begins to get busy now, but we'll still take a little walk along it. But I haven't actually finished with Wallace Haven yet. There is a waterway down there. There it is. Quite a nice little bridge across it from the car park into the pub. It's quite an attractive little area now. But again, you can we are probably still below sea level here, and when I get to the next farm gate, I'll have a look across and see where the settlement of Norman's Bay begins. I'll not go down there this morning because it's a private road and it's not very well made up, and I don't want to damage the car. But I know it means pointing towards the sun, but can you see there, that ridge there? That's the shingle bank, and that is protecting this part of the marsh from flooding, or sea inundation, as perhaps somebody might want to call it. Now I wonder how much further. I'm going to have to walk up here to find what I want. Never looks that far on Google Maps. Excuse me. Here we are. And there is one of them there sluice gates that I was telling you about. And that is what is left of Wallace Haven, having been split into several bits and pieces on the way down from the Marsh Road, and now, as I say, used to drain and irrigate and do what it needs to do to protect the marshes. And there it flows until it eventually goes out in a culvert underneath. Well, I say flows, there doesn't seem to be a flow on it at all this morning, so the gates must be closed. But it flows in a culvert out into the sea. And that's what's left of Wallace Haven. And I'm sorry, I haven't found any wildlife for you this morning, not a rabbit, not a heron, nothing. But that's it now. We've done practically the whole of the marsh. There's nowhere else that I can really show you, but if I walk across to this gate here, I know I keep harping on about the vastness of Pevensey Bay as it was when the Romans and the Normans arrived, but look, I'm just going to pan round because I think this is probably one of the best views I have been able to give you of just how big the area of Pevensey Bay was and how big the area of Pevensey Marsh is, and our views obstructed now by the campsite, so the holiday homes, what have you. But I go round the corner and there it is, all the way over there, and back round into the sun, which is just rising. I suppose it's about 7:30 in the morning. It's time for me to go home for my breakfast. High fibre cereal, coffee, freshly ground beans, since I got my own bean grinder, and lovely hot buttered cinnamon and raisin toast. Or maybe I'll have some granary bread, because I bought some honey yesterday. Which doesn't sound much, but the honey I bought at my railway station, Bodgham, from the man who keeps hives at the station. And it was that fresh, he'd only just put the labels on the jar, so how about that? And this really does conclude my exploration of 1066 country and what have you, or whatever you like to call it. I hope you've enjoyed my ramblings and visits this summer. There won't be any more planned out on location visits this year. As you see, it's now 7:30 in the morning. I prefer to be somewhere when the lights like this at 5:30 in the morning. But I've got plenty planned for next year, so hopefully you'll stick with me with some of the little bits I'll be putting on through the winter. I'm in holiday in North Wales next week, so there'll be some from North Wales hopefully, and I'll probably do them in little segments to keep me going through the winter. So once again, thanks for looking. I don't make any money out of this, it's just purely an amateur thing. But if you want to give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, do whatever they say on YouTube, then you're certainly very welcome. It's nice to know people have enjoyed what I've done. It's warts and all, so thank you, and we'll be out on the road again as soon as is possible.